This just in, you are looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
The World Trade Center, tower number 1 is on fire. The whole outside of the building was just a... We have a number of floors on fire. It looked like the plane was aiming towards the building. It was all units going into the box. It could be a terrorist attack. World Trade Center, 1060. Send every available ambulance, everything you got to the World Trade Center now. Squad 288 to Manhattan, Kerry. 5-5 to Manhattan. Brooklyn to Manhattan. Engine 10 to Manhattan. Car 3 to Manhatton, Kerry. Rescue 2 to Manhattan. Engine 6 to Manhattan. Green 6 to Manhattan. 110 to Manhattan. Marine 1, we're in the river. You got smoke, you got fire out of the north side and now coming out of the west side of the World Trade Center, the west side. Fire has penetrated the skin.
Fire Department 408, where's the fire?
I'm on the 106th floor of the World Trade Center. We just had an explosion on the 106th floor. We had smoke, and it's pretty bad.
Roll every available ambulance you got to this position.
What building are you in, sir? 1 or 2?
One World Trade. Yeah, there's smoke, and we had about 100 people up here.
Sit tight.
You guys have jumpers, baby, jumpers.
Do not leave, okay? There's a fire or an explosion or something in the building. All right, I want you to stay where you are.
You also have fire out of the east side of the building.
There's people jumping out of windows. I've seen at least 14 people jumping out of windows.
We're there. We're coming up to get you.
See the smoke coming up from outside the windows, John?
All right, we're on the way.
Jumpers, did you already jump?
Please, hurry.
I do not remember the day that all life stopped. The day in which onlookers became victims and neighbors reigned as heroes before meeting an untimely death. "Mommy?" I called out, with innocent eyes glued to the screen. This wasn't the puppet I'd been expecting. This wasn't action, or drama, or even a thriller. This wasn't meant for my eyes. But yet, my eyes did see the horror, just like my mother's did when she came to realize what the world was suffering through, what her child was being exposed to, and what thousands of other children would recall every night in their ill-fated dreams, for their mothers wouldn't answer them when they cried out that day, and they never receive another warm hug again during their tantrums and triumphs. They never have a mother, or maybe a father, perhaps both, because of 2 planes. And one day, Mommy? Mommy? Mommy! Mommy! It started out as a regular day, they said. Mark kissed his wife and son goodbye, just as he did every morning. He didn't know that he'd never come home. And neither did they. His son couldn't have imagined that the one call they received that day was his father, trying to connect to them. But the line died before they could answer. The line and the man. Those passengers had no idea that when they boarded Flight 11 and Flight 93, they were boarding planes destined to shake the world to its very core. No. Some were merely going to work, just as Mark was.
Is he inbound to JFK?
We don't know.
You don't know where he is at all?
He's being hijacked. The pilot's having a hard time talking to the... we don't know. We don't know where he's going. He's heading towards Kennedy. He's, like I said, he's like 35 miles north of Kennedy now at 367 knots.
Okay.
No idea where he's going.
Please give us a call and let us know any information, that would be great.
Okay, right now I guess we're trying to work on, I guess there's been some threats in the cockpit.
There's been what? I'm sorry.
We'll call you right back as soon as we know more info.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sure.
Gas leakage. That's what the first responders were told when they arrived on the scene. For them, it was just another Tuesday. 2 brothers acting as volunteer firefighters were called down to the first tower. It wasn't a pretty sight, but they weren't worried. A gas leakage could be fixed easily enough if it was caught on time. One stayed back to clear the surrounding area, but he kept in contact with his brother through a radio transmitter. That is, until the first tower fell, and all that was left on the air was dead static. Mommy, why is there a plane in the building? I had asked, not fully understanding, just like everyone else that day. Perhaps we simply wanted to believe that it was a work of fiction, that the world wasn't capable of something as sinister as this. But the man standing on the 80th floor, he believed, maybe not at first. No, instead he stood awestruck as he watched the plane come closer and closer, until the only action he could take was to duck underneath his desk. Miraculously, he survived. But Betty didn't.
This is Flight 11. My name is Betty Ong. I'm number 3 on Flight 11.
And we're also lost American 77. United 93, United 93.
What's going on, Betty? Betty, talk to me. Betty, are you there? Betty? Do you think you lost her? Okay, so we'll stay open. I think we might have lost her.
Have you ever experienced that feeling? Caught somewhere between dreams and reality, where one step sends you plummeting down and the feeling is enough to shock your mind so greatly that you wake up in a cold sweat with every hair standing up on end. Have you ever experienced that feeling after being caught in a decision with one option to choose that death in reality and the other to suffer through excruciating pain only to die from the smoke trapped in your lungs and the flame licking your skin with the devil's tongue? Now imagine being a mother, worried about your children at home, never able to kiss their foreheads one last time, to console them during their nightmares, to laugh at the innocent wonders of the world. But the unbearable heat is too much to stand, and it's with thoughts of Lucy, Jack, and Hugo that you embrace the feeling of flight one last time. Strangers, co-workers, enemies, friends, all caught in that same crossroad, all choosing a decision together, and in groups, they fell, just before the tower did. Some holding hands, too scared to die alone, too frightened of the unknown, but the unknown was what everyone faced on Tuesday, September 11th at 9:00 a.m. And people still dare to say that suicide is cowardly, but if there is a God, I know for certain the jumpers were welcomed with open arms. Those that weren't caught in the building were ransacked by debris and rubble, wedged in tight, suffocating areas where they spent days, even weeks, coming to a slow and painful death in a place where nobody could hear their last cries. The cars that loitered the streets were painted with the ashes from paper, cardboard, wood, plaster, and flesh. Along the windows of the abandoned vehicles, messages were written in the dust-caked dawn, and in the shops along the streets and many stores around the world, the doors closed. Out of sympathy and respect, Even if they were living oceans apart, mankind was still silenced to this day. We're still silenced whenever we see the damage, hear the bloody cries, see the tears, and witness the events all over again. But nothing was as shocking as the first time we saw a plane crash through a building. And it wasn't make-believe. Clouded like fog engulfing the area, utter darkness, yet it was almost noon. Stranded and helpless, civilians tried to reach their loved ones, only to be held back by the arms of the rescuers, arms that would soon be free of life and soul as they too were taken. And that was only with the first tower. A second was soon to follow, and a second was soon to fall.
Second airplane went in on the other side of the World Trade Center, plane number 2. That's not an accident, that's on purpose.
The trade centers here in New York have been hit by airplanes. In Washington, there is a large fire at the Pentagon. The Pentagon has been evacuated.
A woman fell down an elevator shaft in the lobby of 02 World Trade. Now, how many people where you're at right now?
Like 5 people here with me.
Oh, that's on the 83rd floor?
83rd floor. Everybody's having trouble breathing, and some people are worse. The floor is completely engulfed. We're on the floor, and we can't breathe. And it's very, very, very hot.
Honestly, I just want to let you know I love you. And I'm stuck in this building. I just wanted you to know that I love you, Mom.
I'm gonna die, aren't I? No. I'm gonna die.
Ma'am, say your prayers. And we're not gonna die. We're gonna think positive because you gotta help each other get off the floor. Now, stay calm,
It's so hot. I'm burning up.
Now the fireman who was clearing the explosion line over here severely injured.
Can you?
I already did that,
Stay on the line with me, please?
Yes, ma'am, I am gonna stay with you.
It's really bad. It's black. It's iron. We're looking at financial center. 2 of us, 2 broken windows. Oh, God!
Building has just collapsed.
The whole side was collapsed?
The whole building has collapsed.
The building has collapsed?
The building has collapsed.
There's been a major collapse in the tower. The command center out here.
Marine 6 to Manhattan urgent. Tower 2 has had a major explosion and what appears to be a complete collapse surrounding the entire area.
Citywide priority message.
Who's the priority message?
Bunch of firefighters down with hits. Number 2. Number 2 World Trade Center.
Yeah, firefighters down at 2 World Trade Center.
Affirmative. Can anybody hear me? I'm a civilian. I'm trapped inside of one of the fire trucks underneath. I can't breathe much longer. Please save me. I'm in the cab of your truck. Please help me. I copy that. I'm gonna go look for him. I can barely breathe. Please save somebody. I've got 5 patients. They need to be treated and transported. Can I have them in my command car? You have to direct me to the nearest treatment center. I'm here with some firemen and treating firemen and PD and the numerous EMS personnel. We're retreating towards the water because the debris is still falling on us.
I have one patient at this time with 3rd-degree burns to 90% of his body.
Trust in the lobby of number 7 World Trade. We have about 40 people here at this time.
7 World Trade, 10 floors.
The tower is leaning. All operations are being moved north. Everybody who is just staging has stopped the tower. We're moving further north. They're afraid of another collapse. Building 2 collapsing. Building 2 collapsing.
I'm heading over to hospital 14 with a 40-year-old female. Taking a 3rd-degree burn to about 60-70% of her body. EMS resources to the foot of number 7 World Trade. We have numerous patients evacuating with injury.
We got an ambulance full of people, and we're being bombarded with so many we can't handle. We got an ambulance full of cops and pedestrians that we need help. Can you tell us the nearest triage?
George, have them mobilize the army. We need the army in Manhattan.
just like the thousands that lost their lives that day. Mothers, sisters, brothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, grandparents, sons, and daughters. They had dubbed it the wedding. The first plane kissed the groom and the second the bride. The hijackers were the wedding guests, and everyone else, they were collateral damage, unimportant and uninvited. And it was a wedding of sorts. They had fireworks, they had screamers, they had people dancing in the streets, not out of joy, but sheer terror to them. It was all the same to them. It was a spectacle in their minds, but to ours, it was hell on earth. And from this wedding, a new birth took place. A war was created, fighting for those lost, only to add to the death toll, only to increase those devastating numbers, only to appease angry, bitter, spiteful people left behind. So today, I ask of you, please embrace those you love. They had no idea that the 11th would be their last day, just as we don't know when ours will come. And nobody hears those kind words only said at a funeral. Why save them until it's too late? I don't remember. But I'll never forget.